As a red-blooded, McDonald's-eating American, there's nothing that gets me going more than a car that can go fast in a straight line. And this guy, the 2014 Mustang, I think is the best that you can possibly get for doing just that, and I'm gonna tell you why. So when the 5th generation Mustang came out in 2005, otherwise known as the S197, it came out to much fanfare because, unlike the new Edge Mustang that it replaced, this actually harkened back to the original Mustang that made it so popular to begin with. And it was a really striking design that I think they kind of knocked out of the park, and because of that, they only slightly evolved it as the years went on, because this lived all the way through 2014, which this is actually a 2014 model, and the 2014s got the best of the best.
Hey folks, today's video is brought to you by SalvageReseller.com. This website allows you to bid live on online salvage auto auctions without a dealer's license. You can register for free or use the 20% off coupon in the description below. Go find your salvage car gem now.
So when this came out in 2005, you had two engine options. You could get their 4-liter V6, which put out about 210 horsepower, or you could step up to the GT, which had the 4.6-liter V8, and that put out about 300 horsepower. Now, I'm not including any of the special editions or the Shelbys. We're just talking about the ones that were the standard from the factory, ones that most people bought. But in 2011, they updated these engines because they got a lot of flack for how slow those engines were compared to the competition. And that new V6 was a 3.7-liter V6, bumping power up to 305 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. Now, what we have under the hood of ours is the 5-liter Coyote V8, and this is where I think Ford knocked it out of the park. Not only does this engine look fantastic under the hood, it also performs fantastic as well, putting out 412 horsepower when it first came out, and in 2013 they upped it to 420 horsepower. And that means that this Mustang, when new, was propelling itself 0 to 60 in about 4.3 seconds, which, believe it or not, was just slightly faster than a base Corvette. Now let's see if I can just take off. Now I'm not going to measure my 0 to 60 time, but I do want to see how quick this can be. Ooh, Nelly! Oh, yeah, you feel that full 420 horsepower, and I'm already at above the speed limit, a little above the speed limit. Sorry, this thing moves pretty darn quick. It's kind of hard to tell how fast you're going because it's actually surprisingly quiet in here. Yeah, now I'm not doing a full 0 to 60 because I'm up here at a mile above sea level, and I am not going to get the 4.3, especially with the automatic transmission. And all you guys are all just going to roast me in the comments that I don't know what I'm doing and I'm slow, but it's still plenty fast. You feel that full 420 horsepower and 390 pound-feet of torque propel this thing, and it is fast. I mean, even by modern standards, this car, you know, in 2013 is about 10 years old nowadays. So this car is getting a little dated, but it still feels genuinely quick. And I'm gonna go take it around some turns here because, you know, this got a lot of flack for its handling back then, but I think that it's not as bad as you think it is. The live rear axle, yes, it's an ancient design, and yes, it does kind of hinder the handling of these cars, but let's whip it around a turn here. Woo-hoo-hoo! Yeah, it's still plenty fun, and it's gonna keep your heart racing, and it's gonna give you all the thrills that you would expect out of a typical muscle car. Now, in the interior of the Mustang, it is equally as retro as the outside, and that starts with this steering wheel, which I think is a classic Mustang design with the 3-spoke, and it's got a really nice leather wrap on it. And you do have the convenience of having all of your controls up here for the radio and for your cruise control, and a few options up here, because this gauge cluster, believe it or not, you can actually change the lighting and the colors of the gauge cluster. And I think that's one of my favorite little features of these, and this gauge cluster does look perfectly retro as well. Now, moving on to the center stack, you do have a little 12-volt power outlet, which is kind of oddly placed up here at the very top. And then moving down, you've got your shaker radio, which you had two different options. You could get a 500-watt stereo or a 1,000-watt stereo. And then just down here, you have big, chunky buttons, no touchscreen to talk about here. And we do have the automatic transmission, but you could get these with the 6-speed manual, which I really recommend getting in with the 6-speed manual, because not only that, you got a more aggressive rear end that made the 6 speeds a little bit quicker. And you do have the convenience of a couple of cup holders and some rear storage in the armrest as well, and some back seats that are mostly usable. So when this came out in 2005, it was a huge departure from that New Edge Mustang with this large grille. And yeah, it may not seem like it's large to today's standards, but back in 2005, this was a large grille. And not only that, to harken back to the original Mustangs, they did put the fog lights in that grille, which I think gives it a classic look. And not only that, but this has this canted front nose, which gives it a really striking design that, again, is a harken back to Mustangs of old. Now, I am a big fan of all muscle cars, okay? Whether you're Mopar or GM or Ford, I love them all. They're all fantastic in their own right. But I will say there is just really something special about a Mustang, because it gives you the best of both worlds. It can be a comfy daily cruiser, and it can also be a showy muscle car. You know, and it's not as compromised as a Corvette. I mean, Corvettes are fantastic, don't get me wrong, but you don't have back seats. You're sitting a lot lower to the ground. It's a bit wider. I mean, it's a much more special feeling car, whereas the Mustang, it's much more approachable. It feels like a more usable daily car, but it's just as fast. So you really do get the best of both worlds when you come into the Mustang. Now, if you got that 2011 or newer, it has that 5.0 badge to really shout out to people what you are hiding under the hood. But I really like this classic sculpted side design, as well as the fastback. Now, these louvers aren't a factory thing, but I think they do give it a cool look. And the rear end looks as classic as the rest of the cars, starting with this center mounted GT badge with the little blacked out center insert here. And then I like this tail light because it's got 3 different areas in here, and it's actually sequential, which gives it a really cool look when that turn signal is on. So if you're in the market shopping for something that you want to go really fast in a straight line, for a little over $20,000, I think this is a really good bargain. And if you can't swing that, just get the earlier GT versions, because they're like half the price of this. Or maybe you can just wait a little bit, because I think since this is still a fairly new vehicle, it's gonna drop a little bit in price as the years go on. But either way, it's still a great car to have. It is a lot of fun to drive down the road, and I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Is there a better car for going fast in a straight line from the factory? Either way, thank you so much for watching. This has been Brendan, Cole behind the camera. Take care, guys.